Welcome to my channel English Stories. Today is my topic, History of Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah II, also known as Bahadur Shah Zafar, was the last Mughal emperor of India. His reign from 1837 to 1857 marked the final chapter in the history of the Mughal Empire. His reign coincided with a period of decline for the Mughal dynasty, as the British East India Company had already become the dominant power in India. Bahadur Shah II's time on the throne was largely symbolic, and he had very little actual control over the empire's affairs. His legacy is tied to the Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the First War of Indian Independence, in which he played a significant, though largely ceremonial, role. Early life and background, birth and family. Bahadur Shah II was born as Mirza Abu Zafar Sirajuddin Muhammad on October 24, 1775, to Akbar Shah II and Empress Mumtaz Begum. He was the eldest son of Akbar Shah II and was brought up in the Mughal court, which was already under the heavy influence of the British East India Company by the time he was born. Father's reign. His father, Akbar Shah II, had little real power during his reign, 1806 to 1837. The Mughal emperor had been reduced to a mere figurehead, with the British East India Company controlling most of India and acting as the de facto rulers. The Mughal Empire, which had once ruled most of the subcontinent, was now confined to Delhi and its surroundings, and its authority was symbolic rather than substantive. Ascension to the throne. Bahadur Shah II ascended to the throne in 1837 after the death of his father, Akbar Shah II. At the time of his ascension, the Mughal Empire had already been effectively reduced to a puppet monarchy, with the British East India Company having control over the military, foreign policy, and administration in India. Reign of Bahadur Shah II, 1837 to 1857. 1. Mughal decline and British control. Symbolic ruler. Bahadur Shah II's reign is considered one of ceremonial rule. The British East India Company had full control over India's governance, and the Mughal emperor had little power in the administration of the empire. His role was largely symbolic, and his authority was limited to the Red Fort in Delhi, where he presided over court ceremonies and formal state functions. British supervision. The British resident in Delhi, a representative of the East India Company, essentially governed the city. The Mughal emperor had to conform to the policies of the company, and his reign was marked by the increasing colonial dominance of the British in India. The British East India Company had already begun to encroach on Mughal territories, annexing large portions of land in the north, central, and southern parts of India. The last vestiges of the Mughal Empire were confined to the Delhi region, and the emperor had no power to defend it. Marathas and other regional powers. The Maratha Empire, Rajputs, and other regional rulers had long since asserted independence from the Mughal Empire, making it even harder for Bahadur Shah II to maintain control over any substantial part of India. 2. Cultural patronage, art and literature. Despite the loss of political power, Bahadur Shah II was known for his patronage of art, literature and poetry. He was a poet himself, writing under the pen name Zafar. He was a patron of Urdu literature and is remembered for his contributions to the cultural life of Delhi. His court became a centre for poets and scholars, including famous figures such as Mirza Ghalib, Zauq and Shauq, who thrived under his reign. He also promoted the arts, encouraging the production of Mughal miniatures and the performance of classical music and dance. Symbol of Mughal legacy. While the Mughal Empire had lost its political power, Bahadur Shah II continued to be a symbol of the Mughal legacy and was revered by many as the last representative of a glorious past. However, this status did not translate into political strength, and his position was increasingly hollow. The First War of Indian Independence, 1857, the spark of the rebellion. In 1857, tensions between the British East India Company and the Indian population reached a breaking point, triggered by a series of grievances, including the introduction of the Enfield rifle cartridges, which were rumoured to be greased with cow and pig fat, offensive to both Hindus and Muslims. The Indian soldiers, sepoys in the company's army, began to revolt, marking the beginning of the Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny. The rebellion spread across northern and central India, with major centres of revolt in Delhi, Meerut, Kanpur and Lucknow. Bahadur Shah II's role in the rebellion. While Bahadur Shah II was largely powerless in the political sense, the rebellion provided him with an opportunity to regain some of the symbolic authority associated with the Mughal throne. The rebels, many of whom were soldiers and peasants from various regions, rallied around Bahadur Shah Zafar as their figurehead. Despite his initial reluctance to directly involve himself in the rebellion, Bahadur Shah II was eventually declared the Emperor of India by the rebels. He issued several proclamations calling for unity against the British and gave symbolic leadership to the resistance. Battle for Delhi. The most significant event of the rebellion was the Siege of Delhi in 1857, where British forces, led by Major General John Nicholson and Sir Colin Campbell, laid siege to the city for months. The Mughal Emperor's position in Delhi became increasingly precarious as British forces advanced. The city of Delhi was bombarded and many of its residents were killed or forced to flee. Bahadur Shah II himself was captured by the British after the fall of Delhi. The fall of Bahadur Shah II and the end of the Mughal Empire. British victory. After several months of fighting, the British forces captured Delhi in September 1857. Bahadur Shah II was arrested, and the Mughal Empire was formally abolished. Exile. Bahadur Shah II was tried by the British for his role in the rebellion, though his involvement was largely symbolic. He was found guilty of treason and was exiled to Rangoon, modern-day Yangon, in Burma, Myanmar, in 1858, along with his wife and children. His exile marked the official end of the Mughal Empire after 3 centuries of Mughal rule in India. Death. Bahadur Shah II spent the last years of his life in exile, a broken figurehead, far from the glory and power of his ancestors. He died in 1862 in Rangoon, where he was buried in an unmarked grave. Legacy of Bahadur Shah. End of the Mughal Empire. Bahadur. Shah II's reign marked the final collapse of the Mughal Empire, a dynasty that had once ruled over much of the Indian subcontinent. His symbolic role in the 1857 rebellion made him a key figure in the history of India's struggle for independence, even though he had little direct control over the events. Cultural contributions. Despite his lack of political power, Bahadur Shah II is remembered for his contributions to Urdu poetry, literature, and culture. His court in Delhi was a centre for intellectual activity, and he remains an important figure in the cultural history of the Indian subcontinent. Symbol of resistance. Bahadur Shah II's role in the 1857 rebellion has immortalized him as a symbol of resistance against British colonial rule. He was a martyr to many Indians, and his figurehead leadership inspired generations of Indian nationalists in the struggle for independence. Conclusion. Bahadur Shah II, the last Mughal emperor, had little real power during his reign, but became a symbol of India's defiance against British colonial rule. His involvement in the 1857 rebellion marked the end of the Mughal dynasty and the beginning of direct British rule in India. While his reign was a period of cultural flourishing, especially in literature and poetry, it was also one of decline and political impotence. His exile and death in Rangoon remain tragic reminders of the end of an era in India's history, and his legacy as a symbol of Indian resistance persists even today.